We are doing this listening session today. We will be doing another listening session in Boston tomorrow. We will come together as a commission and meet in public, probably in the April timeframe, and discuss what changes we think, if any, are necessary to the regulations. We will agree on those changes, and then very shortly thereafter discuss, vote on, and approve a set of draft regulations that will be disseminated through the Secretary of State's office in the April, early May timeframe. We will give the public time to digest those draft regulations, and then we will have formal public hearings around the state, probably including Springfield, but probably more than the two public listening sessions we're having, and give people the opportunity to come back in a public setting, make comments on our draft regulations. We will also, once we publish our draft regulations, have a formal comment period, so not just the public hearings, but we encourage and welcome everybody that's interested to make written submissions to the commission with comments on our draft regulations. And then here's Commissioner Flanagan. Perfect timing.
As usual.
A grand entrance.
I followed the camera. Wherever there was a TV camera, I was going.
This is Commissioner Jen Flanagan. Trying to remember where I was. So we will encourage people to both come to our public hearings as well as submit formal public comments on our draft regulations. We will meet as a commission in public to discuss the feedback we've gotten through in the comment period and the public hearings. We will modify, if we feel appropriate, the draft regulations and promulgate a set of final regulations that will be in the June timeframe. We don't have the exact dates yet for the public hearings and for all of the commission sessions, but that's order of magnitude the timing. So this is the first and a really important step in the process, because after this and the public listening session in Boston tomorrow, the commission will start debating and finalizing draft regulations, and so this is really a great opportunity to provide input. That being said, let's go. I really, again, just want to reemphasize it's just going to be extraordinarily important for people to adhere to the 5-minute limit. Hopefully 5 minutes will give you an opportunity to get what's on your mind into our minds, and you're more than welcome to submit either today or subsequently written notes of your comments. Okay, so the person, and I apologize in advance for butchering names if I can. I'll try to avoid it. But the first speaker is Amy Lisciulo. How badly did I do, Amy?
Not bad. Lisciulo.
Lisciulo.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for coming today.
Absolutely. I'll try to talk into the mic.
Yeah. Would you just say a few things to make sure people
Can everyone back there hear me?
You guys in the back hear Amy? Great, thank you. But yeah, please do speak into the mic. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us this morning. This is really great for us to be able to speak about some of our struggles with the regulations. I'm Amy Lisciulo, and I represent Temescal Wellness of Massachusetts. We're a vertically integrated, co-located medical and adult use establishment. We got 4 cannabis facilities. We have 7 licenses across the Commonwealth. And to date, we've found working with the Cannabis Control Commission and all the inspectors really great, very collaborative.
Your check's in the mail.
No, really, and the communication's been great too. We send a lot of emails, we ask a lot of questions about the current regulations, and we are very pleased with the responses that we get from everyone. So on that note, we'd like to present the following recommendations from our perspective. We follow every rule and regulation very diligently, which sometimes confuses even ourselves. So as far as administration, one of the things that the agent registration process is redundant. We have this many ID badges, 7 ID badges for one person.
Each license.
So each license, whether for medical and adult use, because we have 7 licenses, so we have 7 IDs, it represents about $2,000 per person. So we propose implementing a central registration system somehow so that we can have management people or other employees who represent all licenses registered once instead of many times. As far as facility inspections, we found that they're not preceded by document inspections or detailed checklists. sort of leaving us in the dark sometimes. For example, our post-provisional and post-final license inspections in our production facility lasted for 5 hours and required dedicated attendance of 5 Temescal managers and directors. At least 30% of the time spent by agents was downtime as inspectors reviewed documents and conferred privately, whereas we could have provided documents ahead of time and been more prepared. Unannounced inspections aren't coordinated or communicated between medical and adult use, which if they take 5 hours, it's gonna disrupt our operations a bit. On January 25th, our production facility hosted inspectors, adult use inspectors for our final license inspection. 5 days later, the medical inspectors came unannounced, which was a bit redundant. So something like that, if there was better communication and coordination between the medical and adult use programs to co-inspect, co-located facilities and ensure reasonable time frames. Some challenges we're having with inventory is Metric is not a comprehensive inventory management software. There's medical marijuana inventory that exists outside of Metric in separate software. So any inventory transferred from medical to adult use is double counted, which puts a big burden on our retail staff and production staff. And there's no mechanism for transferring adult use inventory back to medical, which is a problem. So we propose getting away from the virtual gateway and moving towards Metric, moving everything towards Metric. As far as production, we have a few operational challenges around labeling and tolerance, and we have a few. So there's no tolerance range for edibles right now. So if we have edibles that test at 5.01 grams per serving, we can't use those in our adult use market. It's non-compliant. There's 2 different sets of labeling requirements for adult use and medical, which makes wholesaling difficult. When we wholesale in, we have to relabel. As a solution, we propose adopting a 15% THC tolerance for edibles, and adopting 1 set of labeling requirements for adult use and medical. As far as retail, the prohibition of discount programs is a problem. It discourages consumer loyalty and it curtails our ability to support communities that may disproportionately benefit from access. For example, during a post-provisional inspection, the CMB confirmed that we could extend our veterans program to adult use marijuana, and they since have said that we could not do that any longer, offer that benefit to the veterans. So we propose that we're allowed to set our own pricing and extend discounts in compliance with the existing regulations, for example, no free products. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have anything that you want to submit, or
What's that?
do you have any paper you want to
We'll
submit?
be emailing.
Okay, great, thank you,
Thanks so
Amy.
much.
Really appreciate it. Next up is Eric Schwartz. Morning, Eric.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. We're going to record this, not that there's any shortage of cameras in the room, but I just want to let you know.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should just let everybody know that everything is being recorded today, so just be aware of that as you're making your comments. Go ahead, Eric.
Great, thank you. Thank you for inviting us here. My name is Eric Schwartz. I am co-founder and creator of Farm Mug Cooperative. I've stated the 7 principles of a cooperative in front of this commission in the past. I will not repeat them here today. I know that this body knows these principles because you wrote them into the final regulations 935 CMR 500. I'd like to commend this commission for being the first state agency in our country to include the 7 principles of a co-op in the regulatory framework of the legal marijuana industry. It's been a long year since those regulations were passed, and I've learned a lot during that time. Today, I'd like to share with you some of what I've learned. The first thing I'd like to acknowledge is that our government continues to target the people that grow marijuana. A painful reality of legalization is that law enforcement still arrests cannabis farmers. I've learned this through my advocacy as I've sat in public meetings alongside police officers from Roxbury, Massachusetts to Buckland, Massachusetts. I'd like to ask this commission to make it your responsibility not only to oversee the emerging industry, but also to protect the people that are working so hard to emerge. Please hold accountable government officials that are breaking Massachusetts state law. You've been given a mandate by our state government not only to regulate this industry, but also to uphold the law. Throughout my advocacy, I've seen the blatant violation of open meeting law by our public officials. I've seen this in Buckland, Massachusetts, and Munson, Massachusetts. I've also seen an open meeting law violation complaint to the Attorney General's office stalled within the local government. If we can't get such complaints to our Attorney General, then how can the AG's office help us? And if the CCC and the state legislature continues to throw your hands up at municipal indiscretion, then what are we to do other than defend ourselves? As I sit here today, there is not one cannabis cooperative licensed in the state of Massachusetts. For that to change, this commission and the Attorney General's office needs to get tough on municipal governments. I am calling upon this commission to immediately end your relationships with municipal associations that have only two goals during this process. Number one, to stall the rollout, and number two, to protect the people that are targeting our people. I ask that this commission work with us, the local entrepreneurs of this industry, to prohibit the bad practices adopted by many local governments. The most recent of these practices is the extortion of operators through local licensing fees and one-time payments. The worst of these can be seen openly displayed on the town of Lanesboro's website, a municipality that has issued a non-refundable filing fee of $4,000 for all applicants. This cost is 6 times the fee to apply for a license from the state. Where is such local money going? I can tell you where it is not going. It is not being invested in us. Lastly, I would like to take this time to speak to the cannabis cultivators of Massachusetts. You are my brothers and my sisters in this journey, but you must show up if you want these injustices to stop. If you do not tell this commission and your local government what you want, then you will only perpetuate the status quo with your silence. If you truly want to enter this industry, you need to give yourself and your community a voice. I know this has been a long and hard road of marijuana prohibition, but that prohibition has ended in Massachusetts. Marijuana is legal. The possession and consumption and gifting of marijuana is legal. And the last time I checked, stating an opinion to your local government is not only legal, but it's what our country was founded on. I thank this commission for taking the time to listen to my experiences and my requests of you. I am more committed today than I've ever been to see to it that a craft marijuana cooperative is licensed in the state of Massachusetts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Can you just hold your applause, please? Thank you.
This is not around.
Yeah, you can just leave it. Okay. Leave it in a pile. We'll make sure they get to everybody. Thank you, Eric. Next speaker is Peter Bernard.
Maybe take notes.
Morning, Peter. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having us all out this morning. I know for some of us it's a long ride, but actually easier than getting into Boston. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Bernard, and I'm the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Grower Advocacy Council, and we pay our attention on cultivation and manufacturing. I want to talk about a couple different things briefly today. I don't even think I'll use my whole 5 minutes, to be honest with you, because I'm going to follow up with an email. I'd like to talk about delivery. Love the idea of delivery. You guys came up with a pretty decent set of regulations last year that through some roundtables with our members and with other people in the community, Commissioner McBride, I believe I sent you our revisions and notes a little while ago, but I'll send that to you guys later. It's really important to smaller cultivators in particular. Ultimately, it should be available to anyone who wants to apply for it. But what we would ask is that that particular license type get restricted to micro businesses in tier 4 or less. The reason being is for a variety of reasons. These smaller cultivators and manufacturers have a lot of competition with the bigger operators in the state. If that smaller operator can rack up a city sales tax anywhere in the state, it makes them a little more attractive to the municipality, and it'll help remove some of those barriers. Like I said, everybody should ultimately be able to get it, but we've seen the rollout through the state. You guys have seen it better than I have. It's usually the deeper pockets that have got their stuff together and are getting out there. There aren't a lot of the smaller guys that are out there. What are there, like 9 micro-business applications out there right now, as compared to how many larger growers? And part of that is because if you've got somebody putting in a tier 8, and the town only wants to give out 1 license, and you got somebody else who just wants to put in a tier 1, that tier 8 is more financially attractive to the town, so the tier 1 loses out and has to go look for it somewhere else. And that's what they keep coming on. So for the micro-business in particular, it was initially part of that, and a lot of people started their plans based on that being part of the business model. I'll get off of delivery now. That's all I really wanted to say on that before I got into medical stuff. I know there are changes coming in the medical regulations, and there's only one change I'm particularly concerned with, and that's a patient's right to grow. We see in the press fine folks like Chief Carmichael complaining that they can't tell the difference between a medical grow and an adult use home grow. Well, that might be all well and good, but if Chief Carmichael wants to change that, he's got to legislate it. Because the medical law says, and I quote, a reasonable number of plants to sustain a 60-day supply, unquote. If, regardless of what else happens, the patient needs to be able to grow that. If you've got a person that needs Rick Simpson oil, which is a high form of concentrate, it can take a few pounds to make up the 60-day supply of that, and that's going to take more than the 12 plants that the adult use law allows for. And a nice segue into my other topic is education. This isn't really a regulatory request so much as a request for guidance issuance that we're more than happy to help with. The reason Chief Carmichael can't tell the difference between a medical grow and a adult use home grow is because the police in general don't have an understanding of when a plant is a plant, when it's a seedling or a clone, how to tell the difference between those and the count between them. Like in the commercial regs, plant doesn't get tagged until it's 10 inches tall. We have no provision for that in the home grow law. And I wouldn't necessarily want to regulate it. It would be nice if it matched. But what we need is, we need an educational guidance for law enforcement so that they can tell the difference. When you read in the paper about the guy that got busted with 120 plants, it could be a cloning tray that's no bigger than the table I'm sitting at, and they're all 2 inches tall and don't even have roots yet. But the headline is, bust with 120 plants. It's really important we get some law enforcement education on the topic, because it saddens me every time I read a story like that in the paper. People are going through court, they're getting off, but in the meantime, they've lost all of their plants, they've lost money in court costs and lawyers, and for what? For lack of education on the behalf of law enforcement.
Okay.
I thank you much for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Perfect. Gentleman who gave me this, 2 things. One is we will not be making comments today. This is purely a listening session. 2 is the sign-up sheets are outside the door. If anybody wants to, anyone wants to make comments, it is not
Will
signed
you
up.
accept a comment on 71?
Pardon?
Will you accept comments on
We-
71?
There are no restrictions on what people can speak to today, but we will not be making comments.
What is
Thank you.
public hearing?
Next up, Ellen Moore.
It's public hearing. Public comments.
Hello, how are you, Ellen?
Good, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Hi, my name is Ellen Moore. I'm a resident of Holliston, Massachusetts. I'm a medical marijuana patient, and the reason I'm here today is because cannabis has become my primary medicine for fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. I'm also the treasurer of the Massachusetts Growers Advocacy Council, and I work with the Massachusetts Patients Advocacy Alliance. And first I wanted to start off with a wonderful experience I had going to Alternative Therapies Group when they opened for adult use in the middle of December. I went as a medical patient, and everything went really smoothly. I got to meet the mayor of Salem, and I believe the owner of ATG as well, and they did a very good job, as have many of the dispensaries who have opened adult use and are co-locating medical. I'm here today to talk a lot about medical, and basically, really, we need to make medical more affordable to the patients in the area, especially the disabled. Right now, yes, there are discounts for veterans, for seniors, all kinds of discounts that are offered, usually 10–20%. Hardship patients at most of the dispensaries, they get 10%. Some people are getting $300 in disability a month, okay? 10% off of cannabis at a dispensary doesn't help. And I know in the original law there was a provision for sliding scale based on income, and really would like that to be addressed when looking at the draft regulations. Also eliminating the $50 registration fee. We've been paying that a lot, and right now also too, the burden to get your recommendation can cost up to $200 for a doctor's visit, and again, people who have financial restrictions receiving disability, that can be cumbersome. Brings me next to on the grow rights, on growing. I am a medical patient, and again, the reason I'm here is because I've found that certain combinations of CBD, cannabidiol, I can't say it right, and THC ratios help me in order to function daily, be able to be out, be coherent, not have so much THC in me, that, which I do at night with edibles in order to sleep. But some of the medicine I need, that CBD, THC ratio, dispensaries carry at times, but I'm not always able to find consistently. I have a registered caregiver with the state who does grow for me, and then I'm able to take, we're right now currently growing a plant that's CBD THC ratio. We don't know what it'll be until it's tested, but then I'll be able to take that and make the capsules I need, and also cost effective as well. The last thing I'd like to address is the non-vertical licensing for medical. Again, and it was brought up, there are two different sets of regulations, especially in regards to edibles manufacturing between medical and adult use. And they're, again, I make high-dose edibles that I use for sleep at night rather than needing other medication. Having the ability to have people who are making those kinds of products for medical only would be awesome, and to be able to get manufacturing licenses or being able to grow, cultivate the plants that are necessary and needed. And again, I'm not sure how all the distribution process works, but that can also be worked in with the retail that are opening, and with the medical, that would be on the medical side. So with the medical dispensaries as well. And so I really appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you this time. I'm hoping that my smile at the end is much more pleasant than the last way I left you. And again, very happy with the way the rollout has been going, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Next up is Jenna Martin. Morning.
Morning, really bad time to start choking, I'm sorry about that.
Take your time.
Okay.
Need to like some water?
I'm good, I've been trying.
Not that I have any to give you.
I know. Thanks for that. Hi everyone, my name is Jenna Martin. I'm basically going to represent myself as a medical patient for the state of Massachusetts. Again, forgive me, this is my first time. I'm a rookie. I'm going to tell you guys a quick little story, everyone a quick little story, but actually coincidentally about an experience I had about a week ago. Please forgive the cough drop. I was actually scheduled to go in for surgery. Not too big of a procedure, but an arthroscopic procedure on my knee. again, last week at the hospital, and as I'm sure everyone knows, before you go into a surgical procedure, they call you up over the phone a week earlier and tell you what you can take and what you can't take, and don't take any Tylenol, and don't take any vitamins, and you can have this and you can't have that, and don't drink after midnight. So I went through the whole thing, and she said, the woman on the phone says to me, you know, she goes over, this is what I have for your, you know, medications, and I, yes, this, no, this. And she said, is there anything else? And I said, by the way, I'm a medical marijuana patient. That was it kind of bothered me right then and there. I'm kind of thinking, well, why didn't they ask me instead of me having to offer that information? I'm gonna let it go. So I said, I'm a medical marijuana patient. And she said, oh, glad you brought that up. You can't smoke before, you know, you can't consume anything 3 days before your procedure. I said, why? Well, because you can't. Okay, and I said, well, forgive me, but it doesn't work like that. This is, you know, and I said, forgive me, I don't mean to be rude, but this is my medication. You know, just as if, without getting too into it in front of everyone here, if it was Prozac or insulin or anything else, this is my medication, this is what I need. I used to be prescribed benzos. I've had a problem with benzos. I will not take them anymore. It may not affect my health physically, but it'll affect me up here, and I'm not gonna do it, and you can't make me. Cannabis is my medication. And she said, okay. And I just said, this is what I need. And she said, okay, not a big deal. Just let the doctor know and the anesthesiologist know before you go in for surgery. I go in a week later, and there I am on the table, and the nurse comes in and questions me and doesn't bat an eyelash. And it's about 20 minutes before I go in for the surgery, and the anesthesiologist comes in, looks down, and goes, oh, I see, you had cannabis? Yes, I had cannabis. Well, you can't have that. And I looked at her and I said, really? Right now, where this is what I have to go through right now? And I said, I'm a medical patient. This is my medicine. When is this gonna end? When is it gonna change? I was told a week ago that it was fine, just to let you know. Well, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I can clearly see that. Why don't you know what to do? Because no one has enforced the education on the doctors and the medical staff, and it's not right. Something needs to be done. If a law got passed that I'm allowed to consume this product, this plant that has saved my life, if I'm allowed to consume this product as my medication, why isn't it mandated that all medical staff, all doctors, all anesthesiologists learn how to deal with it? And the best part is, cannabis isn't even dangerous. You can't die from cannabis. Does anybody know about the endocannabinoid system? Because clearly my doctor did not. Clearly my anesthesiologist did not. Because if they knew about the endocannabinoid system, they would know there's no neuroreceptors on your brainstem, or your heart, or your lung, or your kidneys, and you can't die. My heart rate might slow down. My blood pressure might slow down. You know what? Deal with it. I shouldn't be denied my medication because of lack of ignorance and the lack of education. That's it.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank
How did the surgery go?
I didn't have it. I got denied the surgery on the table. I asked for a waiver and they wouldn't let me sign one. So I got denied as I was going into the OR. The doctor said, I'm not operating on you, and I got up and I left. I forgot to leave that part of the surgery out. I got denied surgery on the table. And when I called anesthesia, the head of anesthesia, to file a complaint, they said to me, you know what? It wasn't medically necessary. And I said, really, doc? That's all you got for me? Is it wasn't medically necessary? She said, we did what we thought was in your best interest. And I said, really? What was in my best interest was to let me have my medication, not take the benzos that you told me to take. It may have been best for me physically, but not best for me mentally. But they're not educated on that.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thank
I wish
you.
you the best.
Thank you.
Next up is Michelle Herman. Morning, Michelle.
Okay, so, hi, my name is Michelle Herman. I'm here as a medical patient. I'm here as a mother. This is my kid. This is Zoe. We're right now trying to get a medical card for her, but we have a big problem. I keep checking the menus, and menu after menu, week after week, I'm not finding a single thing that I would give my daughter, honestly. And I've been looking for caretakers, and this whole 1-to-1 ratio, this is a real problem because most people that have caretakers or know about caretakers, the good ones are already taken. So I wanna get someone who's gonna be experienced, who's gonna be experienced grower, who's gonna be experienced manufacturer. These things are not easy to come by. I'm looking into, Maine as a possibility. I don't know what to do. As you know, the whole thing with the 2 doctors, that's fun. So the thing with the vertically integrated, that is a real problem because it doesn't allow me as a patient to be able to choose. I would like to be able to have the better quality, the craft quality stuff, and not necessarily the quote unquote, the big box Walmart weed. I have a very similar story to Jan, as I also had a surgery that was denied to me at the very last minute. I was told that I'm not allowed to consume marijuana 48 hours before my surgery, except mine was life-threatening, and so mine had to be done. So they just kind of basically scared me instead and told me that they were gonna test me, and if I was gonna be positive, they were gonna hold me until I wasn't positive. So 30 to 45 days they would hold me. I had a stent inside my urethra. I was in an incredible amount of pain. I went and I didn't do anything after midnight, and I told them so. And even though they had threatened, it was an empty threat, but you know what, this keeps happening. I mean, mine happened 6 months ago, and this happened like a week ago. I mean, one of these days, someone's gonna come into the ER, and they're not gonna know what they're looking at, and they're gonna kill somebody. I mean, just, because they just don't know. I really think it is crucial. The education is crucial for anybody who is in the medical professional field must have some sort of course, 101 basic. What is cannabis? How does it affect different systems? They need to know. They were lazy. They needed to go and figure out the mathematics of what kind of anesthesia they needed to give it. Because yes, it can affect anesthesia, and there are drugs that can affect it. So just like anything else, if I was taking benzos, they would have figured it out. So why weren't they figuring it out for cannabis? Because it's not legal, because they don't know about it. So let's teach them. Let's have it be. It is legal here, so let's show them that it's legal, and let's get rid of this stigma. Of course, the less restrictive access for medical patients for pediatrics. I mean, my goodness, I have there's 2 doctors, and what happens if one of them leaves? What am I gonna do? I mean, we moved here from Florida. I can't go anywhere else. And please do something about these laws. Please look at these laws. Please do what you said you were gonna do, because I feel like, this with DPH and this pass and lift and shift, and what about the patients? What about the kids? Really, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up is James Jasper. Morning, James.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
All right, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is James H. Jasper III. I'm a resident of Springfield. I'm a craft cannabis cultivator. My last position was as the cultivation manager of a 10,000 square foot organic farm in Washington. And I've been a professional cultivator since 17 and a passionate home grower since 09. I relocated to the Commonwealth 6 months ago from the Pacific Northwest because after reading about the work of the Farm Bud Co-op and leadership of Commissioner Title and the Commission, I wanted to be a part of the normalization process that seemed like we were trying to do the right thing. As a craft cultivator, I'm not in it for the big money. I'm just trying to make a modest living off of doing what I love. My ultimate goal is to open a craft cannabis community co-op in Springfield that operates on the CSA model. A couple of years away, that's my goal. I understand that the process of taxing and regulating takes time, but I'm genuinely surprised that as yet not a single cannabis co-op has been licensed. I'm genuinely surprised that because of local zoning regulations and restrictions, sustainable and healthy sun-grown sun-grown outdoor cultivation is hobbled, and no urban greenhouses have been licensed. I'm genuinely surprised that the CCC is allowing localities to essentially extort license applicants for short-term gain. Is this perhaps connected to the lack of cultivator representation on the Commission? If so, I urge you to recruit actual cannabis cultivators to help inform your work. Please accept my business card afterwards as an offer of service. Without licenses, I'm out of work. If I moved back to Washington or Oregon tomorrow, I'd probably have a job by St. Patrick's Day. This slow rollout is urging me to return west, and only the hopes for the work of this commission and the leadership of Commissioner Title are keeping me here. My hopes would be further encouraged were the commission to use the Minority Cannabis Business Association's Model Municipal Social Equity Ordinance as a template for its mandate to ensure equity in the cities and towns of the Commonwealth. The future of legal markets in Massachusetts can be seen in present-day Oregon and Washington. When the state starts realizing its tax revenue, more licenses will be issued, more producers will produce, the number of outlets will increase, retail prices will drop, competition will shake out the losers, and it will become just like buying heirloom tomatoes at the farmer's market. Can't we just cut to the chase and open the playing field to citizen-led, small craft farmers like FarmBug, ASAP, since the big money players are already building out their 100,000 square foot operations? They're mega grows. If we don't want the mass-produced, irradiated, toxically grown Monsanto Frankenweed to be all that's on offer on the shelves, please make the interests of real live cultivators who care a central part of your work. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Again, please. Thank you, James. Next speaker is Charles Payne. Thanks, James. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Well, thank you.
My name is Charles Payne. I'm a representative from the Carpenters Union, and I came to you this morning to point out and ask the commission to consider more oversight in the construction of dispensaries and cultivation facilities. Construction is a hotbed of wage theft and tax fraud, and I would ask you to consider requiring certified payroll on the construction of these facilities as are required by every other, or excuse me, not every other, but every public works job in the state. In an industry that's really so highly regulated and taxed, I don't think it would be a big lift to require that. And it's a blatant loophole in the tax laws that are being ignored by recent study. 1 in 4 construction jobs contribute to the underground economy. I'd also ask that you encourage, any way you can, and the investors and people creating these opportunities to require that they have construction opportunities for women and people of color. They're already doing it at UMass, UMBA, and the Mass DOT, and it's 6.9% women in construction. They're making the numbers, and I don't see why we can't do something to help the people that really want to get into a career, instead of people that are being exploited. It's 15.3% people of color at UMass, and they're exceeding their numbers. That's all I really have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Charles. Next speaker is Jessica Allen. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Allen. My family owns Raging Acres, a 56-acre farm in Munson. And in creating Munson's adult use zoning bylaws, the town of Munson initially sought to leverage canned language from a regional planning agency known as the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And those bylaws disenfranchised Munson farmers by effectively zoning them out of the ability to cultivate. And so I advocated for the creation of a committee of townspeople to start from scratch on the bylaws and create language that gives farmers access to their local market opportunity. The goal being, of course, to create zoning that is inclusive, that is equitable, and not unreasonably impractical for farmers to participate. But at the core of this committee are two planning board members who unfortunately have resistance. And after multiple meetings, the committee has failed to create practical language that gives local farmers the ability to participate. And after the chair of, the committee chair sent out a lengthy email to committee members last month concluding that we should perhaps model after zoning in a neighboring town which does not zone in farmers, I was put in a position where I had to file an open meeting violation because he was conducting business outside of a public meeting, and that's quite frankly what it was, an open meeting violation. He was attempting to sway the committee against including farmers. And so I have since resigned from Munson's Adult Use Zoning Committee, which is unfortunate. However, I am now moving forward independently on behalf of the townspeople of Munson to create bylaws that are indeed inclusive of local farmers. The people want access to clean, craft, organic cannabis that is grown outdoors under the sun. And that requires greenhouses, it requires land, and it requires farms. And it requires co-ops. We will pass this language in our town meeting in May. And in Munson, I want you to know that the townspeople will do it for ourselves. I am here today to let you know the incredible uphill battle that zoning has been for us. And I know that Munson does not stand alone. That said, we will persist grassroots style and we will get it done. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jessica. Next speaker is Ryan Harb.
I yield my time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, here goes Kristen Palpini.
Not talking.
Not, okay, thank you. I don't know, I'm having a hard time reading, I'm sorry. John Maristro.
Yield my time.
Yield your time? Okay, thank you, John. Malika Jeffries.
I yield my time.
I think I'm observing a trend here.
When are they yielding the time?
You don't have to yield your time, you can just say you don't wish to speak. We have enough time for everybody that has signed up, so thank you for the gesture. Next speaker is Lamont Clemens.
Oh, is this one?
Okay. Is it something I said? Jason Moodley.
Cool, if I have a few extra minutes, I got 3 pages.
Really appreciate you keeping 5 minutes. Take an hour, no problem. Seriously, Jason Moodley, and I really appreciate Jason if you could try to stay to 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Good morning, how are you?
Morning. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my notes open here.
Sure.
To the members of the board, first I wanted to thank you for taking the time to listen to my thoughts today around delivery, social establishments, and social equity programs. As I've told many friends and family, if we want change in our system, now is the time to provide our input, so thank you for giving us this opportunity. For those of you who do not know, my name is Jason Moodley. I am the founder of Wormtown Genetics LLC, an economic empowerment applicant and social equity applicant in the Commonwealth for a co-op cultivation facility tentatively to be built in the town of Spencer, and also exploring additional secondary sites in Bellingham and Holyoke. Unlike a lot of individuals trying to enter this industry, my story may be a little different. I grew up in Marlborough, Massachusetts to a blue-collar family. An Irish-Italian mother raised my brother, cousin, and myself after my father from South Africa passed in a car accident at the age of 6. For me, race always has been a difficult topic, as I guess I don't exactly fit into a cookie-cutter box. I guess I'm not white nor black, or in ways I'm both. When a racist joke is made, I guess I laugh and cry at the same time, yet I'm probably the most politically incorrect person I know. I digress. I grew up relatively poor. My mother was on welfare, and I told myself from a young age I wouldn't be poor like that and my kids would have a better life. In the 4th grade, I told myself I was going to go to the University of Miami Coral Gables to be a marine biologist, and believe it or not, over the next 8 years, I did just that. I scored high enough and did good enough in school to get accepted to all 6 schools I applied. You can imagine how heartbroken I was when my mother sat me down and told me I couldn't go because the family just couldn't afford that school. I still attended college, UMass Amherst instead. I went to school for economics and political science and was doing well. But after 2 semesters, once again, my family was running low on funds, and I was sat down to be told if I wanted to continue at school, I would need to figure it out on my own. Not the smartest move, but a means to an end, I decided to sell cannabis to pay for my education. It wasn't the best thing to do, but in my mind, it was a means to a better end. For it, I paid dearly. Not only did I get in trouble with the law, I had to leave school because of trouble I got into, and I never finished my degree. I never got into other drugs, only cannabis, as not only was it a way for me to pay for school, it was a way for me to cope with a lot of other issues such as ADD and social anxiety. But for this self-medication, I got ridiculed and shunned by my family. I left school and worked in finance for 10 years. I married and had 2 children, life went on, and I was divorced. When medical laws passed in 2014, I was finally ecstatic. I felt this was finally a turning point, and I decided to leave my career as a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch and begin a medical consulting company by the name of CBD Greenhouses and Consulting. We worked with individuals in the Commonwealth, advising them how to create their own safe and affordable meds. During this time, I got to see how this plant could stop seizures and help return appetites to cancer patients. I even sustained substantial injuries myself and was using it as an effective treatment to help pain rather than dangerous opiates and other pharmaceuticals. I never thought that during this period, a licensed cardholder like myself would be a victim of police profiling in the town of Hardwick. I was harassed and taken into custody one February night in 2015 because according to the officer's police system, my medical marijuana card and caregiver card was invalid and was over my limit as a result. As it turned out, this was never the case. However, the actions of this officer would have forever changed my life. As of a result of said infraction, an immediate threat was filed with the RMV, removing my license to operate indefinitely. For 2 years, I lived without a license. I was isolated, and my fiance at the time took the brunt of it. She had to drive the family everywhere. About 2 years into this, she needed a breather. We decided to take a trip to Salem one Halloween evening. A night I should have been driving, but I couldn't. That night, the car was in a major accident that ended fatally. 3 days later, I woke from a coma, 2 broken arms, broken leg, and numerous other fractures. My fiance was dead. The reason I tell you my life story is not for you to feel sorry for me. It is to show you that pre-prohibitionary laws have been a detrimental impact on individuals. Individuals regardless of color, sexual orientation, or religion. I know when I talk to my brothers and sisters in this industry, it doesn't matter what walk of life they come from. All people from all walks of life are affected negatively by our previous archaic drug laws. I know the social equity program will replace the economic empowerment program because the economic empowerment program was flawed. I would ask the board to consider making the social equity program open to only individuals that have had previous drug convictions, not base it off things such as demographic location and/or race alone, as I've seen these things being severely abused as loopholes for larger corporations to enter the marketplaces, rather than what we truly intended it for. If you like it, we can.
I want to try to wind it up.
Okay. To continue, I also had some feedback on the CAB meeting held January 1st in Boston. There was a lot of discussion on delivery vessels and edible use in social establishments in general. A recommendation to meet both the populist demand to have these facilities come out in a timely manner, but also to balance the concern of the CCC, would roll out social establishments in 2 phases. First, establish laws for social establishments just using cannabis in its concentrate and flower forms. And then, after these have been established and more time to create sensible laws for edibles, roll that out at a later time. Concerns I have had with the edible consumptions and social spaces that I feel the CCC has major disconnects with from the CAB meeting on January 11th. Issues around delivery vessels. There's a lot of talk about with food establishment would 5 MIG recommendations be the whole entry dish for food servings. I know there was discussions on delivery food systems such as pizza delivery. So I feel to address both concerns to roll it out in 2 phases. Finally, just to wrap up, On the delivery recommendations, I thought the cab recommendations were spot on. I agree with a lot of the stuff. Two things I want the board to really consider is a know your customer program. Working in banking and finance, I figured this will be the biggest detriment to stopping theft or actual issues with delivery services. I feel that 2 delivery drivers in a vehicle is a detriment to delivery drivers. If somebody's gonna rob a vehicle, they're gonna rob it regardless if there's 1 or 2 drivers in there. I'll be more than happy to email. It's
Yeah,
more
please,
here.
please,
I know
please
I'm
do.
out of time, but thank you for the time today.
Thank
board.
you very much. Wish you the best, Jason. Please do email comments. Thank you. Next up is Tichina Davis. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Attorney Tichina Davis. I actually represent the city of Springfield. I work with the city council, and we're working on implementing our selection process for marijuana establishments now. I don't have any comments. I'd just like to thank Commissioner Title publicly for her assistance with social equity. We're still struggling with it, and you spoke with myself and Councilor Hurst, and you provided me with some clarity. So I'd just like to thank you publicly on the microphone.
Thank you, Tichina. Next speaker is William Russell. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're the last person to whom I'll say this morning. Good morning.
Good morning,
In
everyone.
the afternoon. Go ahead, William. Thank you for coming today.
I'll follow up in writing and keep
Please.
it short and sweet. So I am a medical marijuana patient and caregiver, and I'm a 2L at this university, School of Law. My concern comes mainly from the rescission of the Cole memo, a statement made by our U.S. Attorney Andrew Lelling, and a couple of provisions in Massachusetts law, namely cooperation with law enforcement, that's MGL 94G, section 42, and a provision that identifies specifically that no section of the law shall be deemed to grant immunity for any member. I'm aware of the stigma associated with the industry and also federal enforcement. There are recent cases that discuss that Congress has the authority to regulate even personal private consumption for even 6 plants in one's own home. I think that the fact that USA Lelling flat out stated that nobody in the Commonwealth would be granted immunity doesn't mean that we in the Commonwealth can't grant our people immunity. If the Commission and the legislature deem it appropriate, I think that some form of immunity can be granted to people such that it will incentivize participation both in the medical and potentially recreational programs, but specifically for patients and for medical providers and establishments that shouldn't have to fear that information they give to their government to participate in these programs will be used against them in any way. I understand that the protections against self-incrimination at the federal level came into effect after our protections under the Article 12 of the Declaration of Rights, and they provide even more protections than the Fifth Amendment, specifically transactional immunity. I feel under the current law that if it's not addressed directly by the Commission or by the legislature, that it could leave us open to attack for a program. And we are, at this point, we're an example for everybody else in the country. We have some of the most stringent regulations with respect to pesticides, residual solvents. We have a lot to be proud of in the Commonwealth. And I think we can lead the nation in protecting patients, caregivers, and establishments that choose to participate. That's all, and I'll follow up in writing.
Thank you very much, William. Appreciate it. I'm having a little trouble reading the name of the next, Brittany. Something dash Bailey. I'm really sorry that I just can't read the handwriting here. Is this ringing a bell for anybody? Is that Brittany?
I think she stepped out.
She stepped, okay, I'll just, we'll come back to her. Next up is Thomas King.
I don't wish to speak, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pedro Hernandez,
I don't wish to speak.
John Quinn,
I don't wish to speak.
Nick Giamarino,
No.
Matt Judge.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Just gonna bring up my notes here. Greetings, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today regarding our ideas for modification of the regulations governing registered marijuana dispensaries and marijuana establishments. My name is Matt Judge, and I'm the Director of Compliance for Theory Wellness. I have 4 points that I would like to speak about today very quickly. Our first point is regarding 935 CMR 500.30/8, registration of marijuana establishment agents. And this has been spoken to before, but in short, we think that this regulation, which requires a marijuana establishment agent to be affiliated, who is affiliated with multiple marijuana establishments, to be registered at each establishment, to be an unnecessarily costly and burdensome regulation, specifically on our human resources staff who process duplicate sets of paperwork. Further, we expect this regulation raises the Commission's administrative load considerably. One registration per company would be sufficient in our view. Second, in reference to 935 CMR 500.105/13.d.4, transportation between marijuana establishments / storage requirements. The regulation states that if a marijuana establishment pursuant to a marijuana transporter license or a marijuana transporter is transporting marijuana products from more than one marijuana establishment at a time, the marijuana products for each establishment shall be kept in a separate locked storage compartment during transportation, and separate manifest shall be maintained for each marijuana establishment. This regulation creates conditions for the inefficient transport of marijuana products, as it requires either separate trips for products from different vendors or structural segmentation of storage areas of transport vehicles. This structural segmentation inhibits the maximum storage area of the vehicle, as well as hindering efficient packing of products into the vehicle storage area. Since all cannabis products must be clearly labeled as to their contents and separate manifests must be maintained, we find this regulation to be unnecessary. Finally, the stipulation for separate compartments, since it causes the need for more trips and inefficient packing, is seemingly in conflict with 935 CMR 500.105.h, which states marijuana transporters shall use best management practices to reduce energy and water usage, engage in energy conservation, and mitigate other environmental impacts. Our third point speaks to 935 CMR 500.105.8.b/inventory. This regulation states real-time inventory shall be maintained as specified with the Commission and in 935 CMR 500.58c and d, including at a minimum an inventory of marijuana plants, marijuana plant seeds, clones in any phase of development such as propagation, vegetation, and flowering, marijuana ready for dispensing, all marijuana products, and damaged, defective, expired, or contaminated marijuana and marijuana products awaiting disposal. We have received conflicting guidance from first the DPH and then the CCC on whether clones must be individually tracked or tracked as a lot or a group. We seek written clarification on this point. And finally, regarding 935 CMR 500.104.4, additional operational requirements for retail sale, limitation on sales. The regulation states, in accordance with MGL C94G/7, a marijuana retailer may not sell more than 1 ounce of marijuana or 5 grams of marijuana concentrate to a consumer per transaction. We seek more guidance on the concept of purchase limits as it pertains to marijuana-infused products. With the medical regulations, there is sub-guidance which states that 1 gram of concentrate equals 5.3 grams of flour, and this carries through to marijuana-infused products. There is no guidance currently on flour equivalents for tincture and edibles in adult use. In our view, it is necessary for the Commission to clarify limits on these types of products as well as refine the language in this regulation to specify that a customer may purchase any combination of products that results in up to an ounce of flower equivalent. Thank you for my time, and I will follow up by email.
Thank you, Matt, appreciate it. Okay, thanks. Next speaker, Michael McAndrew. Not here? Okay, we'll come back to him. Let me try, is Brittany, and I have to butcher her name again. Is Brittany Dash Bailey, is she back?
She is not.
Okay, so we'll keep coming back. Then the next speaker, Michael Thomason. Did I get that right?
You did, you got it.
Thanks
Hello,
very much.
everyone. Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So again, my name is Michael Thomason. I come here as a patient and a caregiver. I have been treating a cancer patient for the last 5 years very successfully with cannabis oil. He has had no chemo, no radiation, no anything, and we've been able to shrink his tumor by almost 40%. I know this isn't exactly the place because we're here focusing on other things, but I'm wondering what kind of, research is being pushed for, being applied to this. I mean, there's a lot of people in this room that probably have very similar success stories, and I'm not seeing anything in the journals of science or any other medical things. I know that research companies are something that you can start. Seems like the restrictions for those are pretty intense, and you have to have some pretty amazing connections even to be able to start that. It's something I've always wanted to do. I wish I knew how. Hopefully, if anybody knows anything about that, please reach out. But obviously, this medicine is powerful. It's helping people all across the nations, all across Massachusetts, what we're focused on. But a couple things that I had questions about. Obviously, we're not here answering questions, but my concern is the social consumption part and getting some of these people to gather in larger numbers. Obviously, there's a few major things that happen, like the extravaganza events and these other type of events. I've recently started a smaller one out in Western Mass called Infused Productions, trying to get some of these stories together, trying to get some of these people out there, and hopefully build enough resources to start a research facility. But again, there's a lot of, hoops that we have to jump through to make that happen. So I'm here pushing and hoping that we can establish the daily passes for the social events, to get those to come through a little quicker, and also for the actual social cafes and things like that, where it just gives a better opportunity for a lot of these people to gather in a space and share their stories and have a safe space to do so. So I would encourage you guys to help me push for that and figure out how we're gonna get all these people together. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The next speaker is Ravi Mata.
It's actually Raul.
I'm really sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, no, now that you said that, yeah, I'm sorry, I blew it. I shouldn't have been able to see that.
I actually wasn't planning on saying anything today, but just wanted to take a quick opportunity to highlight something that came up. I'm a graduate of the school and recently began working with an attorney who does a lot of licensing work. And we were fortunate enough to get a group of folks that were interested in opening a shop and a cultivation facility who are all people of color and specifically Latinos. And they came to Holyoke, where I previously ran an HIV prevention program funded through the Department of Public Health for 5 years before coming to school here, and specifically working on harm reduction and injection drug use and the spread of HIV. And it was sort of an incredible thing that happened to have that come back to the town where I used to work, especially because the majority of the work I did with that program was to identify the people who had been impacted by the drug laws and how bad of an impact that had on generations of families, including my own. My family came here from Puerto Rico in the late 70s when all the economy left Holyoke. The drug economy was the economy that sort of kept us alive for a long time. Unfortunately, that led to generations of my family not being able to go to college, not being able to get financial aid because they didn't qualify due to their criminal records, many of whom now would not have to worry about that. So when this group of people came together in the city I used to work in, as a Latino, my family was from that area, and that specific city, it was very important to me to be able to look at these laws and look for guidance as to how we can actually prop up businesses like this that are completely Latino-owned and have specific focus on doing good in the community that they're trying to enter and be a part of. Unfortunately, they were not able to apply for priority. And so a big thing that I just wanted to say, again, I did not plan on saying anything, but is that those are very real impacts that a lot of us are facing personally and have been dealing with for generations. Any guidance or any assistance or support that the commission can offer in providing actual clarity and being open and speaking truth as to what communities have been most impacted by drug laws and how we can actually work to give the folks who have been held back for generations the opportunity to actually be a part of this industry can be very, very helpful. My role has been to connect these businesses to the nonprofits that I used to work with. Because one of the things we always worried about was the funds drying up and not being able to do the work next year that we've been funded to do this year. There's no better way to support these organizations than to have funds available that are committed from these businesses, from businesses that actually believe in the investment because it's their people who have been put in jail for generations. And so it'd be a wonderful thing to see something come back and to have a priority available specific to, and I totally respect and understand what you were saying, but as a member of the community that has been devastated by these laws, it would be absolutely fantastic to be able to bring those funds back to this community, provide an avenue through which businesses that are owned by the people who have been devastated, so that they can have a priority and they can get into this industry. The reality is that a lot of the applicants are white-owned businesses going into communities of color that are devastated. And the communities of color do not have the economics, they don't have the support to be able to do this and to be able to do it successfully. So it is a heavy burden, but I hope that it's something that this commission can do and Massachusetts can sort of lead with. So appreciate it.
Thanks very much. I'm having a hard time with the next one as well. I believe the next speaker is Joel Hartstone. Did I get that right?
Good, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hello, my name is Joel Hartstone, and I'm here to represent Safeside LLC, a small family-owned company in Long Meadow. Safeside is focused on security devices that prevent undetected access to packages and containers, and we provided a market-based solution to the need for consumer packaged, locally available industrial-grade security seals to comply with the open container provision, the prohibition in Section 13D. The seals are plastic, low-residue, tamper-resistant security seals. They break when the container is opened, and they display void and open in white letters on a red surface if the seal is removed once applied, so it's tamper-resistant. The Massachusetts marijuana open container prohibition was designed for three essential purposes. First, to indirectly prevent marijuana-impaired driving by making marijuana inaccessible to drivers of vehicles. Second, to indirectly prevent driver distraction from marijuana-impaired passengers by making marijuana inaccessible to occupants of vehicles, but allow safe transportation of not more than an ounce of homegrown or store-bought marijuana or equivalent in products in any type of motor vehicle. The derivation came from the alcohol open container prohibition, but there are several major differences. First, alcohol, when it became legal again after prohibition, was sold by licensed package stores with tax stamps on them that functioned as security seals. The Massachusetts marijuana open container provision, which I'll refer to as MOCP, became effective on December 15th, and there were no licensed stores. It applied only to homegrown marijuana. And for 2 years, it applied only to homegrown marijuana, and it still applies to homegrown marijuana. It also applies to store-bought marijuana that's been brought home and where the package has now been opened, and part of the contents have been removed for use in the home. There were no stores to apply seals for 2 years, and stores still are not required to apply seals. The problem with Section 13D is confusion because there's no definition of the word seal. Open container was defined. Open container was defined to mean that the contents, the package containing the marijuana has its seal broken in order to be opened. But there was no definition of seal, and that caused substantial confusion, especially with the police. The Massachusetts Police Manual, 2018 edition, Chapter 10 on page 1043, confused security seals with liquid and air seals on Ziploc bags, and said that once they're open, they're always open because you have to open them to put the marijuana in the container. But the Ziploc is not a security seal, and was never intended to be the security seal of the type intended by 13D. Now, in actual practice, we know from reports that the police have issued citations where the package is open and have not issued citations where the package is sealed, where the seal's at security seal. So we know that in practice, the police are of the understanding that this meant security seal, and yet the police manual has led to substantial confusion. So what are the present compliance methods? Right now, under 13D, an open container can be in the trunk of a car. That's not part of the passenger area. But fewer than 1/3 of all vehicles now have trunks. An open container of marijuana can be in a locked glove compartment. It can be in the area of a vehicle behind the rearmost seat if there is no trunk, which could be the front seat if it's a sports car. And a package can be in the passenger compartment if it's sealed with a security seal showing that the contents have not been accessed or removed. I emphasize that trunks are fast disappearing. Over the last 5 years, and especially over the last 3 years,
1 minute.
Americans have shifted away from cars with trunks, and less than 1/3 have trunks. If you count the cars coming at you while you're driving, you'll see that that's the case. And there are no ads for cars with trunks anymore. So while police have heavily favored the use of trunks, they're not available. House Bill 71 proposes that only store-sealed containers will not be open containers, and that no other seal would count. That was not the recommendation of the special commission. It was simply slipped into House Bill 71. The use of a security seal best achieves the goals of the commission, the best achieves the goals of the statute. So irrespective of who applies it, it's still a security seal. It still can't be accessed by the person who put it on any better than anybody else. So we would urge you to consider interim regulations to define security seal as a security seal and make this problem go away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please do submit your comments by email if you'd like. Thank you. Would anybody object if we give that another hour to hour and a half, 20 minutes on it, so no objection, we take a 10-minute break?
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're gonna work off that clock. We will get back together at 12:30. As I said, based upon the sign-ups we have right now, we've got at least another hour, maybe an hour and a half. I do encourage anybody that has not yet signed up that wishes to speak to do so during the break. Thanks very much. Thank you.